Okay. Hi, everybody. It's day 3, and we are a little late to the event today. Sorry about that. But because we're 3 hours apart, I leave by 8:30, 5:30 your time to take care of my grandkids on Friday mornings. And so we just couldn't do this until now. I am covered in kisses from 7-month-old Lila. That's how she says she loves me. She like puts her whole mouth on me and she like holds me and shakes. It's just the cutest. And I spent the afternoon at the park with Maisie, using the like thing where you scoop up the sand and dump it out, and chasing her around. And then she was going down the slide, and oh my gosh, she's just a delight. Oh, I wish I had this up that I could show you, that she left a note for her mom in the fridge. I'm really working on early literacy with her at 3 because she doesn't have preschool. So how are you today on this Friday?
I too am in casual Friday attire and mode, although I did start in real clothes this morning because I spent the morning with a bunch of smart teachers in Virginia, so that was cool. But awesome. As we're recording this, it's pretty late on a Friday, and I think we both kind of have that Friday vibe. So what do you want to talk about today?
I want to talk about book talks. I want to talk a little bit about writing, as you and I talked about, and then we're introducing a new thing, which will be for all of the people we interview, which is called the lightning round. 5 quick questions that they don't know are coming. And I have 5 questions for you, and you have 5 for me that I haven't heard of. So that'll be kind of fun.
So I'll go first. I recommend this book, Hamnet, which is a fictional imagination of what Shakespeare's wedding may have been with Anne Hathaway, not the actress Anne Hathaway, but the original Anne Hathaway, who was Shakespeare. It was interesting, she was 26 and when she married him, and he was 18. They had 3 kids, 2 of them twins, right? And the twin boy named Hamnet, and he died at the age of 11 in the midst of the bubonic plague. And this is kind of a reimagination of how that kind of played out, and then how the death of that son led him to actually write the play Hamlet, which was another nickname, I guess, for Hamnet at the same time. I just thought it was an amazing story.
Yeah, as a fellow Shakespeare nerd, when Will in the World came out, which won the Pulitzer Prize, and it followed in the steps of Shakespeare, both of these books are written heavily with history and research behind them. And that is actually in all the research, that he had a son named Hamnet that died at 11 that inspired the play. And for me, I don't know that I've read a book recently that touched on grief, and especially the loss of a child, the way that one did. And you started by saying it was about their wedding. I think you meant their marriage.
Yes, I did not mean their wedding. I meant their relationship over time. And again, that whole idea of, I don't know, it painted him differently than I think a lot of people have looked at him historically. So I just thought that was fascinating. I don't know if it's true or not. I just thought it was kind of a fascinating piece of art.
Yeah, don't you think that historical fiction kind of walks between stuff that we have some record of and the imagined what that record means? Because I have always heard the story that he went off to London and became this famous playwright and had multiple girlfriends, mistresses, and left his wife and children. And when you read this, I think it shifts that entirely. And I always appreciate a story that makes me see that it's way too easy to give somebody a 1-sentence or a 2-sentence, yeah, well, you did that, when you don't really know where that person was and what that happening was. So I inhaled that book. When it came out, I was like, oh yeah, that's moved up to the top of my to read list.
Yeah, it was great.
It was great. So I want to talk, did you have any others you wanted to say? So I want to start with this one thing I put on my laptop here. This is from my first book talk. Books are important. Words are important. I say words matter. In fact, they're not pointless, as you've suggested. If they were pointless, then they couldn't start revolutions and they wouldn't change history. If they were just words, we wouldn't write songs or listen to them. We wouldn't beg to be read to as kids. If they were just words, then stories wouldn't have been around since before we could write. We wouldn't have learned to write if they were just words. People wouldn't fall in love because of them, feel bad because of them, ache because of them, and stop aching because of them. And so I just want to say that this book, Words in Deep Blue, is an older book that I recently reread because it was early in the morning, I couldn't sleep, and I looked for something on my Kindle, and I have always been moved by this book. It's the story, it's from a Melbourne writer, Kath Crowley, and it's the story of a girl who's sitting on the beach with her mom when her brother goes into the ocean and disappears. He dies, they pull his body out, but she hasn't told anyone. So the other piece that's incredible about this book is that the boy she's in love with, his parents own a library, and they have this place called the letters room. And it's a place where you can take a book and you can write your notes in it, and they keep track of them. And people leave letters there between pages XX for so-and-so. And they collect this entire library of people's interactions with literature. So it's beautiful and wonderful at the same time. My other recommendation today is Toast, The Story of a Boy's Hunger, another older book by Nigel Slater, which is going to make more sense after we talk about our writing. But this little memoir, like I'm always looking for what are the frames of memoir. This one is little moment, little moment, little moment. Every single moment is connected to food. And I just think, you know, what a cool way to create a memoir of your life around the candy he ate as a kid, like everything tells the story, but it's food. So those are my
you
book
could take a topic, and I've done this. You can take a topic like candy, just candy by itself. And if you gave kids 5 or 10 minutes to kind of bullet that out, you could come up with all kinds. There's so many stories hidden in that word, right? That gets kids to write.
I saw Nancy Atwell at one of her workshops read the piece she wrote about candy. And everybody in the room, like she'd talk about the big hump and we'd all be like, oh yeah, you know, it was like it immediately puts you, oh yeah, I've had one of those. And the other thing I think about the power of food is that it's constantly, like it represents different periods of our lives. Like it changes with us. Like there's a period of your life, like the pandemic, when I've done so much more cooking and I've had a good time with it. You know, my daughter's a vegetarian, lifetime vegetarian, and she just taught me to make so many interesting things over the pandemic. So food's a great topic for us today as writers. So we're going to talk about two things, right, in writing?
Yep.
And what I think we settled on was talking to you about a poem that I found and an essay that you found that I think is genius, and a little bit about the craft. And then we are going to write over the weekend, right?
Yeah. So we're going to, you know, we call these seeds a lot of times in our classroom. You know, we put something out on the table. We have the kids kind of look at it. And we don't, you know, weigh it down with 4 questions or 6 questions. It's really, where does that examination of that thing take you? You know, pick a line, pick a word, pick a phrase. Now it's Friday afternoon, and we actually discussed sitting here and doing the quick writing in front of you. And then we realized it's Friday afternoon. We're not going to sit and do this, but in class we would.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. But we're going to try on topics, right? We're going to try on what we might write about.
Right. So, and this is unrehearsed. So Penny has picked a poem. I've picked an essay. She's going to share the poem. I'm going to share the essay. And then instead of writing in front of you right now, I'm going to write a little bit over the weekend, and we'll be back on Monday. We'll share the direction that went with us. So let's start with the poem that you selected, Penny.
Yes, and it is Ode to Cheese Fries. I wanted something that was not a fancy food. Golden goo of artificial delicious. What probably lines my stomach with sunlight grease for weeks after eating the yellow, so yellow it could only be manufactured. So what if it's fake? As much cheese content as Apple Jolly Ranchers. I come from a city of foreclosure, empty lot city, where we got dollar store brand action figures. So what? My Wolverine didn't have retractable claws or the right uniform. So my joy at Pano's, my favorite fried everything spot, the cashier's voice, a box of Newports filtered through throat. I didn't know I would miss this home where the patties came from freezers and maybe not ever from cows or even animals. I live in a city that brags about its organic, fair trade, quinoa fed beef. Of course, I miss the 90s pop playing the restaurant, the Backstreet Boys live in Cow City, where the band never breaks up. The song plays on repeat as the cashier takes my order. Say it with me. Cheese fries, please. Give me everything artificial, including cardboard fries, the bread fresh out of some Walmart cloning experiment. Throw in a cold pop. I want a joy so fake. It stains my insides and never fades away. That's Jose Oliveira's beautiful Ode to Cheese Fries.
And think about all the things you could do with that, ode to whatever, right?
Ode.
Ode to all the kinds of foods that are not good for you.
Oh my gosh. I've had the Ode to Common Things, Pablo Neruda's incredible. It's this beautiful edition where it's in English on one side and Spanish on another. And I would have students who can speak Spanish fluently read that version. So I would read one, they would read another. And just the range and the beauty, I've had ode to playgrounds. I've had lots of odes to boyfriends and girlfriends written by students. But it's notebook work. It doesn't have to become anything.
Right.
And for me, that poem turns from just an ode to greasy, slimy food that we've all eaten at some point to childhood and this place where I existed on. It's like more than just cheese fries, that ode.
Can you put that poem back up for a second?
Yeah.
Because and go back to the front of it, because I just think, the craft of it, the starting with golden goo, I'm already in, and I'd want to have kids talk about lines or words or phrases. There were so many good lines. I actually found it a little bit hard to read because he doesn't where you think he breaks in certain places. And so that might be an interesting discussion too about the structure of it. The box of Newports filtered through the cashier's throat. I mean, it's just so good. So much they could do with that.
I love Say It With Me. Cheese fries, please. Right? There's such a sense of he owns this, right? He owns the voice. The other one I love is as much cheese content as Apple Jolly Ranchers.
So
that's good.
The voice in that poem reminds me of the strength of the voice in the essay that I have selected.
Absolutely.
Which is from the New York Times. And we're going to
tell me the title.
I recommend eating chips.
God, what a great title. And this is in the midst, look at this, letter of recommendation.
Okay, I can't see it. You got to share your screen.
I thought. Okay, so I'm lame. Hang on. I love this. A letter of recommendation, right? And look at the date. It's in the midst of this. All of us stuck at home. I recommend eating chips.
So we're not going to read the entire essay. Maybe we'll read 2 paragraphs. So Penny, I'm going to read paragraph 2. Okay. And I'm going to ask you, what do you notice about its craft? I mean, that's what I would ask kids. What do you notice about it? What would you want your students to notice about it?
Okay.
So here we go. Paragraph 2. Please sit down. I've got a whole bag of Cool Ranch Doritos here. Electric blue, plump as a winter seed, bursting with imminent joy. I found it up in the cupboard over the fridge, where by some miracle my family had yet to discover it. It had slipped sideways behind the protein powder back near the leftover Halloween candy. So now I'm sitting here all alone at the kitchen counter, about to sail off into the salty seas of decadent gluttony. The next few minutes of my life, at least, are going to be great.
You know what, Kelly, though? I mean, God, I love that. Do we want to talk about it before I go on with this third paragraph?
Okay, go ahead.
Please sit down. I got a whole bag of Cool Ranch Doritos here, colon. I love this, right? This invitation, this voice of, wait, because look at the first line. Oh, hello, nice to see you. Have a seat. Let's stress eat some chips together. What a great opening line to an essay, right? The command of voice to me the whole time you're reading.
Let's go. Let's have you read one too, because the next paragraph's really great too.
Join me. Grab whatever you've got, open the bag, pinch it on its crinkly edges, and pull apart the seams. Now we're in business. We have broken the seal. The inside of the bag is silver and shining, a marvel of engineering, strong and flexible and reflective like an astronaut suit. Lean in, inhale that unmistakable bouquet, toasted corn, dopamine, America, grief. We are the first humans to see these chips since they left the factory, who knows when. They have been waiting for us, embalmed in preservatives, like a pharaoh in his dark tomb. These chips might have even been produced in the former world, in the time before the plague, when people gathered in sports stadiums, filled concert halls, touched one another's faces, God, high-fived, passed around bottles and joints and phones and cash. But now they have been born into this world, into our doomed timeline, and they have absolutely no idea.
In the voice, I like the short sentence of 3 in a row to start the paragraph. The use of the colon and the dash. I'd want kids to see that. What's the purpose of that, right? But I love the metaphor, like metaphors. And when I say metaphors, I mean metaphorical language, like similes. So like an astronaut suit. Embalmed in preservatives, like a pharaoh in his dark tomb, right? I just love the use of the metaphorical language there. I don't know, it's just such really rich writing that and perhaps this is getting into something we'll get into at another time, but this is a beautiful essay, but it doesn't feel like the kind of essays kids are being asked to write in school. And so I think giving, these kinds of examples and having kids spin out of them would be a lot of fun to do.
Well, I think, 2 things I want to say about that. One is that I'm absolutely using this in the fall. When you first sent it to me, I was like, God, this is golden. But the other piece is that when I give kids things like this and say, this is an essay, tell me what you notice, like the drone view, what is this about? What is this about? And then what do you notice? Every single one of them will be like, I want to write something like that, right? There's this sense of, I want to be that good because I'm reading every line going, okay, what's coming next? There's one of the things I love about essays is when they can be specific and clear and silly, like, okay, pull those seams apart. Now you're there, right? At the same time, he goes, they are born into our doomed timeline. It's like not forgetting that this is really about eating in the time of a pandemic when everything else seems crazy.
Well, in that list of things we're missing out on, right? I just think it's a bigger essay than simply, hey, I love chips. Having said that, I have this temptation to reduce it to something like, I recommend eating junior mints, or I recommend, eating, and then now you're off and writing your own version of the essay, and you could use it as a guide or you could ignore it completely, but it's just as using it as a launch pad. So that's what we're going to do. Over the weekend, we're gonna play with this, and when we come back on Monday, we'll share a little quick write or two that we've done with it.
Yeah, I was thinking about how what I often notice students able to do with something like that as a quick write is that they ride the wave of the author's kind of moxie, the author's stance with a subject, so that they have this like confidence that comes out in their notebook that they don't know where it came from. It came from reading something like that and going, listen, this is my letter recommendation. I recommend finding a co-author like Kelly Gallagher who makes you laugh. And then, right. But I mean, it's like you have this sense of, I can do this. And so both of them are about food, but I haven't decided if I want to go with, and I do this with students, right? I try on topics in front of them. I haven't decided if what I want to write about next to these is something simple, like I recommend having your coffee ground and shipped to you the next day and using it within 2 weeks in the grinder attached to your coffee maker, because you know I'm a little crazy about coffee. Or do I want to really focus on the making? I recommend cooking with your daughter, because that's a very different feel to the piece. So what are you thinking about?
I'm not. I'm going to just hang on to that idea for now. I started to jot down some possibilities, but I think I'm going to hold on to those and share, until I have time to sit down and really kind of think about it. And then we'll share it on Monday. And as Penny mentioned, beginning next week, we're going to start having some guests. We're super pumped. Tom Newkirk is coming on Monday. And we're going to have a discussion about education. But we also thought it would be fun in the last 5 minutes if we did a quick 5 crazily random questions. And so to model what that might look like, and we don't know how that's going to go, we're going to model it here, right here and now. So you want to receive first, Penny?
I thought we'd go one question. No?
Oh, okay. That sounds good.
So here's your first question, Kelly. What is something that people often get wrong about you?
I think sometimes people see me as a little standoffish, but and it's a misinterpretation because I am intensely introverted. And so I think sometimes people get the wrong impression that I'm not as warm or something, that I have a certain coldness to me sometimes. But I think it's more about, I'm an introvert. All right, Penny, since you asked me that tough one right off the bat, tell me one book in education that a lot of people might not know that they should read.
I'm going to choose first thing in my head, Learning by Teaching by Don Murray. And it's a series of articles that he wrote, and most of them are like early 70s, 60s. One of them, for example, is called The Listening Eye, and it's what you do in a conference. So it's just a series of short articles about what it means to teach writers instead of writing.
Great.
Okay, Kelly, your second question, favorite meal?
Favorite meal. Favorite appetizer would be potato skins with bacon on them.
Oh my goodness, that counts.
I know it's not super healthy. I don't know. Favorite meal.
Is that with sour cream or without for your
without?
Oh.
And you know, I'm kind of a weird eater, so to talk about food is kind of a crazy thing. I don't know. If I'm in the mood for meat, I would say my wife makes some really awesome ribs. It's one of my favorites.
Nice.
All right, Penny. Guilty TV show.
Oh my God. It's got to be Love It or List It.
And for those who don't know what that is, a brief explanation, please.
So somebody says, I want to move out of my house. The spouse always says, I don't, I want to stay. One of the hosts, there are two hosts, one comes in and redesigns the entire thing. And Hillary is amazing at doing that. And the other one tries to find them a new house. So there's this back and forth between, you know, like all the problems you uncover. So the only reason I'm mentioning this is my daughter and I like binge watched Love It or List It at the end of her every day, all day teaching to fifth graders. She'd come upstairs and go, can we watch an episode of Love It or List It? And it was just kind of like our go-to thing. Good question. Okay, Kelly, concert you'll never forget.
Uh, I'd say somewhere around 1980, I went to a Bruce Springsteen concert that was a benefit for Vietnam veterans. And I didn't know a whole, and I wrote about this in Deeper Reading, but I didn't know a lot about the Vietnam War at that time. And I'll never forget, the lights went down. And instead of Springsteen walking out, a gentleman rolled out in a wheelchair. And he gave this speech that brought 17,000 people to tears about how mistreated the veterans have been coming home. It turns out the guy in the wheelchair was Ron Kovac, who later went on to write a book called Born on the 4th of July. And after he wheeled off, Springsteen came out and they just tore right into Who'll Stop the Rain. And I was just an electric moment. And it propelled me. When I left that concert, I went on a whole binge of reading books about Vietnam.
Wow.
I had a concert question for you, but it was slightly different. A concert you went to that you would be embarrassed to admit today as a young person.
I went to the Go-Go's with my best friend Yukari. We had the best time.
Well, there's nothing shameful about that. I love the Go-Go's.
We were just like, oh my gosh, it was like, but like they're so pop. I get it, but no, that was awesome. Okay. Oh, sorry. Well, you kind of blew my next question because I've only got 2 left, and it was, who would you rather meet, Bruce Springsteen or Barack Obama? Because I've been listening to their Spotify podcast, and I think they're both amazing. So, who would you rather meet?
I think I'd rather. That is a tough one. That is a tough one. I think I'd rather meet the president. I serendipitously met a president of the United States before in a brief conversation at a literacy conference. I ran into Bill Clinton when he was still president and ended up chatting with him. But I would love to. I read Obama's
Promised
book.
Land.
It's amazing. But I'd want to kind of push him on a couple things. I want to ask him a couple things that were kind of left lingering in that. So I think that's a great question. I would go with Obama.
So should I cue the photos I have with Obama now? Can I do that?
Sure, go ahead.
I mean, this is New Hampshire, right? So everybody comes here, and I saw Obama before he was a serious candidate, and I volunteered for his thing. So I got to carry the mic around and meet him. He's amazing.
Okay, Penny, one thing about you that would surprise people who do not know you.
I am really reckless, and not always in a good way. Like, I really love speed. I love trying things that seem like stupid for my age and my ability. There's something that's, I like being on the edge of between fear and terror with things like learning to paddleboard in the ocean and almost falling off numerous times. That kind of stuff. I love that stuff. Okay. What are you grateful for right now?
I'm grateful that nobody in my immediate family has been struck by the virus. I'm grateful that I live in a place that, although it's inconvenient, it's nowhere near the heartache that a lot of people are suffering. And I'm grateful for. I wrote in my notebook today. I was writing a little bit about first responders and frontline workers. I'm very grateful for that as well. Okay, I think I'm down to my last one.
Be nice.
This is a hard one. Let's see if something comes right away. Tell me about one student you made a difference with.
Oh my gosh. I actually wrote this morning, Kelly. Isn't that weird?
That is weird.
So I was listening to piano music in the stillness in the house at 5 o'clock. And the song that came on, I just distinctly remember. I had this young boy, I was teaching 8th grade, and I would put on this particular CD of piano music, Sally Harmon's Joy de Vie. And it has, it's just really happy music. And he was sitting there writing his notebook, and he looked up and he looked around the room and he went, I just have so many feelings, Miss Kittle. I have so many. And I was so struck by, this is a kid who hasn't known a lot of joy. He had come from juvenile detention, and here in New Hampshire, it's a camp that's north of here that they live in the middle of winter in tents. He'd come from, and writing notebook time, he could say anything. It wasn't graded. The piano music was on, there was this room of people and we were all writing. It was just so powerful. I will never forget it. I don't know what happened to him. But that moment when a kid realizes that, I don't know, I guess that there was this safe space in school where he could experience something that really mattered.
That's great. That's great. All right. So that's the way it's going to work with our guest hosts, our guests, I'm sorry, that start Monday with the great Tom Newkirk.
Yeah.
So we wish everybody has a great weekend. We thank you for joining us again, and we'll see you all again on Monday.
Have a good weekend, you guys. You earned it. Bye.